Welcome to the April 5th meeting of the Parks and Rec Commission. Will the staff secretary please call roll?
Good evening, and it's been a couple months since we've been here. Remember, I have to do this. Good evening, and Commissioner, start off with Leah. Commissioner Burnett?
Hi.
Commissioner Esparza?
Here.
Commissioner Bridge?
Here.
Commissioner Pollock-Cushing?
Here.
Commissioner Alexander?
Here.
Commissioner Randolph?
Here.
Commissioner Suschek?
Here.
And Commissioner Stearns?
Yes, here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Will Commissioner Burnett please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Okay, can the secretary read the procedures for addressing the commission tonight?
Thank you. Pursuant to the executive order executed by the Governor of California on March 17th, 2020, wow, a long time ago, and as a response to mitigating the spread of COVID-19, the meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Commission will allow members of the public to participate and address the commission during this meeting. Public comment may be submitted by telephone during the meeting and prior to the close of public comment on an agenda item by calling the following telephone number, 916-774-5353. If you call, you'll be placed on a brief hold until the attendant can answer. The broadcast is also delayed by up to 30 seconds when you're watching at home. So when your call is transferred to the commission, you'll have 5 minutes in which to speak on a regular agenda item and 3 minutes for the public comment section at the beginning. I will monitor your time and let you know when your time has expired. When calling, please do not use the speakerphone option as it may create difficulty for the Parks and Rec commissioners to hear your comments, and make sure your television volume is turned down. Thank you.
Sounds like the phone's ringing back there.
The phone's ringing.
I'll let you run back there. All right. I will now open public comments. Citizens addressing the commission during public comment are limited to 3 minutes unless extended by the chair, and must be regarding items that are not listed on the agenda and are within the city's jurisdiction. The Brown Act does not permit any action or discussion on items not listed on the agenda. No action will be taken on items addressed under public comments. Public comments can be made by calling 916-774-5353. We'll wait for Ellen.
Good evening. You are on the Parks and Recreation Commission, and you see the comments. Yes. Christy Brothers, and I'm a resident of Roseville since 2018, but I did grow up in the greater Sacramento area. I am also looking to an issue of my neighborhood park, Lewis Park, to the commission. This park is about 20 years old and has never been updated and only receives minimal maintenance. The space the park offers is wide open, yet the only play structures there consists of 3 climbing walks and a worn-through rope with too much slack for kids to actually use. This is my neighborhood park. Playing at this park as much as they could, given the lack of amenities there. Every time I talk to fellow neighbors and parents in the area about Lewis Park, they always express the same disappointment and the lack of play structure and amenities it offers. Families commonly have to drive to other Roseville area parks that offer more for their children. The neighborhood children need an adequate park and play structure. The current structures only allow for a handful of children at a time. The structures have wear and tear, and the bark foundation is unsafe as it hasn't been refilled. During the pandemic, the especially outdoor areas and parks, have served as one of the only safe outlets for children. Today, I am respectfully asking the city schedule Blue Oak Park for a play structure redesign in the near future. The children in this community need it. Additionally, I have an active petition from residents showing a collective desire. I will be resubmitting a formal request in writing. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Christine. And as mentioned earlier, items that are brought up at this point that are not on the agenda will not be addressed, but the commission is made aware of them and staff will follow up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was Blue Oaks Park, right?
Yes,
Park?
Blue Oaks.
Blue Oaks.
Lewis.
All right. And did you hear the phone ringing anymore?
Say that?
Did you hear the phone ringing back there anymore? Okay. So, sounds like we can close public comment. Next up is the minutes. So next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
All right, thank you. All right, second. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next up into requests presentations. First up is item 6.1, which is the 2021 Youth Sports Coalition project funding approval, presented by Jill Geller.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jill Geller, your Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Director. I'm here to present this item on behalf of PRL Superintendent Christy LaRoche, who serves as our department's liaison to the Youth Sports Coalition. Christy's unable to be here tonight. So I would like to request your approval of the Youth Sports Coalition's recommendation to allocate resources from their portion of funding to Wood Creek Little League for improvements to the fields at Mahaney Park in an amount of $12,000. As you know, the Youth Sports Coalition is made up of 7 youth sports providers within the city of Roseville. They each pay a $20 per participant fee to the city to support youth sports in our community. $15 of this fee is for our department's maintenance and operations of the sports fields. The remaining $5 of the $20 participant fee is for projects at these facilities. This $5 fee is divided equally, with half going towards city-driven projects and half going towards projects requested by the Youth Sports Coalition members, as is requested tonight. So tonight's request is a Youth Sports Coalition request from Wood Creek Little League, who has followed the proper process to get us to this point. Their request was presented at a January 28th meeting of the Youth Sports Coalition. And the Youth Sports Coalition approved spending authority in an amount of $12,000 to include the following projects at Mahaney Park: leveling the surfaces of the pitching tunnels, replacing the netting, turf, and hitting mats in these tunnels, and improving the infield playing surface at the Mahaney Fields. The Youth Sports Coalition includes 3 of our commissioners, and I believe that both Mike Esparza and Matthew Bridge were at the January 28th meeting at which this item was discussed. So please feel free to offer any additional comments you might have at the end of my presentation. So again, this item is to request your approval of the Youth Sports Coalition's recommendation to allocate $12,000 from the coalition's portion of funding to Wood Creek Little League for the improvements as previously described at Mahaney Park. At this time, I'll stand for any questions.
All right, so at this time, I'd like to open this to public comment. Is there anyone in the viewing audience that would like to comment on this item? You may do so by calling 916-774-5353, and we'll give you some time to call in. All right. Any comments from the commission? Okay. All right, do we have a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve the funding for Wood Creek Little League.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, Jill. Okay, next up, 6.2, the Brown Act, presented by Michael Christensen. Thank you.
Good evening. Mike Christensen here from the Attorney's Office, and I'm here tonight to give you an overview of the Brown Act. As commissioners, I know you're already familiar with the Brown Act. We work with it all the time, but a refresher is always nice, and also last year it was updated to address some social media use, so we thought we'd take a look at it. All right. So the purpose of the Brown Act is part of a series of so-called sunshine laws that were passed in the 1950s and 1960s, meant to address and promote transparency in government. And so some of the ideas behind the Brown Act are that the public has a right to know what actions its elected and appointed officials take, that legislative bodies must meet in the open and not in secret, and that the public has a right to attend and participate in public meetings. Next slide, please. So who does the Brown Act apply to? It applies to any legislative body of a local agency. That could be the governing body of a city or county, and in our case, it's the Roseville City Council. And then it also applies to subsidiary bodies that are created by formal action of the council. For example, the Parks and Recreation Commission. I think we're up to 16 different boards and commissions now, and the Brown Act applies to all of those. And then it applies also to standing committees that have continuing subject matter jurisdiction. Next slide, please. So before holding a public meeting, the Brown Act requires that we post a notice 72 hours in advance of the meeting. For a regular meeting, for a special meeting, it's 24 hours. And you'll see there that says publicly accessible place. So we post all of our notice and agendas at all of our libraries, here at the Civic Center, and online. And the meeting must also be held within the city. The Brown Act also requires that an agenda be posted, and the agenda must provide an opportunity for public comment on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the local body. So we do that here. We took public comment on the Youth Sports Coalition recommendation. We always take public comment before taking any action on any particular item. The agenda must also contain a brief general description of each item of business to be transacted or discussed at the meeting, which you can see on our agendas. And no action or discussion can take place on an item that's not posted on the agenda. That's why we take public comment in two ways at our meetings. We take it up front just to address, like we got that public comment about a certain park. We want the public to have input and comment on things, but the commission is not allowed to do anything with that. And the reason we do that is because of the Brown Act. All right, so meetings subject to the Brown Act. So this is the basic definition of what a meeting is. Under the Brown Act, it is any congregation of a majority of the members of a legislative body at the same time and location to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action upon any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. So that's the basic definition. The key takeaways here are that you have to have a majority of commissioners in the same time at the same place, and you have to be talking about something that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of this commission. So a word about the seriatim meeting. So seriatim is a Latin phrase for in series, and this is sort of an exception to the requirement that it has to be same time and place for a meeting. And so the idea behind this is that a majority shall not, outside of an authorized meeting, use a series of communications of any kind, directly or through intermediaries, to discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item of business. So a couple of examples of that: you could have a chain of communications. So you could have Commissioner A talks to Commissioner B, and then Commissioner B talks to Commissioner C. And then you could have what we call the hub of a wheel, where you have Commissioner A operates as the hub and then talks to Commissioner B and then Commissioner C, and they are the spokes. And so in those two examples, you have those three people talking about an item that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission, but they weren't at the same time at the same place. So just a note of caution about that. All right, so a word on social media. You can use social media as a Parks and Recreation Commissioner to answer questions from the public or to provide information to the public or to get information from the public. That's all fine. But as far as interacting with each other on social media, there are some different rules that apply to that. So normally, a single contact between one commissioner and another wouldn't constitute a prohibited meeting because you don't have a majority of commissioners there. You don't have a quorum. But different rules are there for social media, and that's Assembly Bill 992 that was passed last year. Next slide, please. Okay. So AB 992 prohibits members of a legislative body from responding directly to any communication on an internet-based social media platform regarding a matter that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body that is made, posted, or shared by any other of a member of the legislative body. So if a public official then comments or likes or retweets or dislikes or posts an emoji or something like that, if you're directly interacting with another commissioner on social media, then that is a Brown Act violation under this new law. So the big takeaway here is it's okay to communicate on social media and interact with the public, just not with each other. So there are some individual communications that are allowed. So an employee or official may engage in separate communications outside of a meeting to answer questions or provide information. If that person does not communicate to the members of the legislative body the comments or position of the other members. So for example, you could have Joe could have one-on-one meetings with each one of you, and that's perfectly fine. But if she were to then communicate each other's positions or comments or something on a particular item, that would be a Brown Act violation. And then a note about emails. Emails concerning commission business are public records, even if they are sent on personal devices or from a personal account. There was a recent California Supreme Court case involving the city of San Jose where the city got a Public Records Act request for all the emails and text messages between council members. And the Supreme Court held that those council members had to pull all of their private text messages and emails from their private accounts and private devices and turn them over. So we recommend that you don't use your personal accounts or devices to conduct city business. All right, what's not a meeting? So we know what is a meeting, what isn't a meeting. A conference open to the public that involves discussion of issues of general interest. If the California Parks and Recreation Society has a conference, for example, you could all go to that. That's not a meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Open and publicized community meetings organized by a person or organization other than our local agency. So that could be, you could go to an Arcona meeting, neighborhood association meetings, that type of thing. You could all go to that, and that wouldn't be a Brown Act violation. Open and noticed meetings of another body of the local agency. So you could all go to a Roseville City Council meeting, or you could go to a Placer County Board of Supervisors meeting. That doesn't constitute a meeting of the Roseville Parks and Recreation Commission. You can go to purely social or ceremonial occasions. You could all go to a park dedication. It's a social or ceremonial occasion. You're not discussing, as long as you're not discussing Parks and Recreation Commission business with one another, that's fine. Or attending a standing committee as an observer. So just as an FYI, there are criminal and civil penalties associated with Brown Act violations. For criminal penalties, it's a misdemeanor to knowingly and intentionally violate the Brown Act. There are other civil remedies. Someone could file an injunction. The district attorney or any other interested party could file an injunction to stop a particular action or prevent future violations. They could also sue to invalidate any action that was taken in violation of the Brown Act. So that's why it's really important that we make sure that we're in compliance. And so next slide, please. And so just to sum it up, so a majority of the members may not discuss Parks and Recreation Commission business items amongst themselves. Be careful of the seriatim meetings where you have a series of communications, replying all on an email or forwarding an email along. Careful with social media posts. We have the new law where you can't be interacting directly with each other on social media. And when in doubt, you can always seek advice from the attorney's office. And so that concludes my presentation. Happy to stand for any questions, or there should be one more slide where that has my phone number on it. But you can always reach out to Ellen, and she'll put you in touch with me. If
We
you
know
have
where
any
to find you.
questions. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions from the commission?
Just one question, and this has come up in past commissions that I sat on, more over with the county, Placer County. One of the things that they did was they started assigning their commissioners local email addresses because of that very thing. Has there been any talks with the city of Roseville to start supplying email addresses strictly for city business to be conducted versus using, again, your private or personal? Some folks may be using their work because that's what they have.
Right.
Should anything come up,
Right.
there could be other things around that.
I'll have to look into that because I was under the impression that you all had a city email account. It sounds like you don't. Okay.
No.
So we'll have to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is a relatively new interpretation of the law by the Supreme Court, is basically that your personal, obviously, you don't have to then turn over every single personal email from your personal email
Right.
account, but it is incumbent then on you as opposed to us to go dig for that stuff and
That's
turn
right.
it over. But I will look into that about assigning individual email accounts to you all.
Thank you, Michael.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, regarding social media, so if the city or parks posts something, so how's the relationship work between the commissioners and the city there? Because oftentimes we'll comment or like or share
Right.
posts by the city.
So that would be fine. So if there's an official city account that posts something, you could like that, you could comment on it, you could both be, all of you could comment or like that. But then it gets, a little dicey when you're, say, for example, Commissioner Chair Bridge posts something, and then, Commissioner Randolph doesn't like that. And then now you're engaging in a discussion, that sort of thing. So as long as the communication is just generally in response to the city communication as opposed to your individual communications or comments, that's fine.
Aren't there different rules or another rule when, let's say, the director wants to communicate with me about a legal issue that's undergoing a court case where neither of us is empowered to talk about it, but I get an email or somebody gets an email and you're attached to that email which says this email is confidential because of legal purposes? Isn't that a part that likely wouldn't come up for this group but is something to consider?
Right, so that would be a slightly different issue, which would be those communications would then be exempt from the Public Records Act, right? So if we got a request for all the commissioners' emails about something, and here's an email with you and me and Jill on it, well, because I'm an attorney and you're a client, and any input that you're giving me and any input that I'm giving you is in the context of an attorney-client relationship, and you intend that information and that communication to be confidential, that's one of the exceptions to the Public Records Act, so we wouldn't have to produce that. Another context where that can come up with the Brown Act is when we have closed session meetings. So this commission doesn't really have a need to have closed session meetings, but there are exemptions in the Brown Act for that for the city council. For example, if they're negotiating an employment contract or they're looking into a real estate deal, that kind of thing, we still have to post that the meeting is occurring and when, and generally what's going to be talked about, but we don't have to have that meeting open to the public.
I had that happen a lot at state parks.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Here, we have a public comment that missed the public comment section, if you'd like to accept that comment.
Yeah, we can reopen the public comment.
Sure.
Or-
Hi, this is Parks and Recreation Commission. You may state your comment.
Okay, I just wanted to state my comments about the public
Seawolves sports team in Roseville. It's regarding the Seawolves, that is a city-run program that recently was decided by the city to be run by a private corporation of DCA. And my family was a part of the swim team, and we tried to sign up to play again, and we were told by the head coach that we were banned from participating because we asked questions about some of the ways that they were running the summer swim clinic and they were treating parents. And so they pretty much, they have the ability to block us, our whole family, from being able to swim or be a part of the team ever again. And we're not allowed to be a part of a public swim team that's in our local city. And so I wanted to just let the city know that because they're private and the city has turned it over into a private organization to run a city program, residents like myself don't have any recourse when they decide they can click you out. You don't fit the profile, you don't fit their agenda, then they can just block you, and they have the power to do that. And I just wanted to let that know that that has happened. I feel completely targeted and broadsided. I have no recourse because they're private now, and so we feel the door closed on us. And we're going to find another window to go to, but I just feel like I needed to let the city know that this has happened to my family, and just to let you know that it could happen again to other families as well.
Well, Mindy, thank you for calling tonight. And as I mentioned, your comments are not agendized, so the commission is aware of them, and staff will be following up with you. We appreciate your comments.
I appreciate you taking the time to listen. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
All right.
Okay, we'll close public comment again. And back to item number 6.3, and we've got park development process presented by Tara G.
Good evening. For most of you, this might be a refresher. For some of you, this is brand new. I'm Tara G., your Park Planning and Development Superintendent. And as you will notice, if you're new to the commission, many of the items that are brought forward to you have to do with park planning and development. So we're taking this opportunity to describe to you the two different major aspects of park development. The first one is planning, the planning component, and that includes long-range planning. So some of you may have heard about the general plan, and the general plan has a recreation element that describes some of the standards, or all of the standards, for which we operate under. Mainly, our standard is 9 acres of parkland per 1,000 people or population. How that breaks down is 3 acres of neighborhood park, 3 acres of citywide park, and 3 acres of open space. So there's your 9 acres. So a developer comes to the city and would like to develop a certain amount of acreage out west. As an example, we keep moving out west. And so we undertake what's called a specific plan. And so that looks like, on the next slide, these different planning areas that are geographically based. So why are some of these lines all squiggly and everything? And the lines on the left are either infilled at big brown area. So that was pre-specific planning time, I guess. And so you can see as we start moving west, we've got some harder, straighter lines that are based on property or land ownerships. Right now, there's 16 different colors in there, and in each of the specific plan efforts, we figure out where the roads go, where the schools are, how we locate the parks, the fire stations, the libraries, et cetera, et cetera. And once we get into the finalization of a specific plan, we have what's called a development agreement. And the development agreement outlines about how many homes are going to be there, what kind of homes, who's going to build what, how the roads are going to be built. We have these, starting with West Roseville, we have paseos, which we never had in the other parts of the city. So it starts to outline some of those things. It is also not uncommon that a developer will come back after everything's been approved and want to evolve or change something. And most of the reason is because the housing market might have changed, and it will allow them more flexibility if we change some of the housing types, as an example. So those will come in as development agreement amendments. And I'm looking at Nick, because Nick's going, you know all of this.
Yeah, I know a little bit about this.
You know, just a teeny bit about it. And so what does that look like? The next slide shows what a specific plan really looks like. This is probably our latest one, or last one we did, and it's Amaruso Ranch specific plan. You probably won't see much happening in this area for a while, but this is what it looks like. And oftentimes we will, if we're in the middle of a specific plan or rounding the corner to approving it, you will be presented a specific plan for review specific to the neighborhood parks and the citywide parks. So what do these colors mean? Gosh, the yellow is low density residential. The brown is light brown is medium density residential, and the dark brown is high density residential, high density being like apartments. The red is commercial. Obviously, you see where the roads are planned. Purple is schools or well sites or quasi-public land. And the dark green, of course, is our parks. The light green is open space. So as you look through that, you can see how spread out and how strategically located our parks are, and where the schools are and where the commercial sites are. Also included in the specific plans are what we call I call space planning exercises. So one of those dark green areas are our park, and we go through an exercise during the specific plan phase to say, okay, what will fit on this piece of property for a park? And once we figure out what it is that we want to do, and this is an example of JM50, which you're going to hear about a little bit more in a couple months. But this is next to an elementary school. And so once we figure out all the parks and what they might look like, we get a construction estimate of all the parks. We add them up all together, and then we divide it by the number of homes that are going to be built in that area. And that's how we come up with the park development fee. We also look at, in that area as well, we look at assessments for maintenance. And we also figure out what it's going to cost to maintain a park of this type. And we do a similar exercise where we figure out per household what would they pay for neighborhood park maintenance as well as street landscape maintenance. And that becomes an assessment for maintenance. So the next slide shows the different types of parks that we build. We build a citywide park. And a citywide park is your Mahaney's, your Mighty's, the Harriet Crab Park, Central Park, those big ones that have a lot of intense, organized revenue potential generating facilities. And those are usually 20 acres or more. They're very big. They're also built in phases because these are multi-million-dollar complexes, and so that money comes in as people are building houses, and everybody in the city contributes to that. It's not just a single neighborhood. So then you have neighborhood, what we call school park sites. They're not really about the school, but they are located adjacent to the school. And so those are more twosies and threesies so far as organized fields goes. They don't have lights versus a citywide park would probably have sports lights. I use the term stay and play as an example. So citywide parks, you could stay and play all day. You could be there because there's so many different things to do there. In a neighborhood school park, your stay and play is probably about 3 hours, somewhere around there, because you're going to go play a Little League game. You're going to, spend a couple hours there. And then your neighborhood parks are the smaller ones, 3 to 5 acres, sometimes 1, but 3 to 5 acres, and that stay and play value is about an hour. You walk there, you bike there, you play, you throw a frisbee, you play on the playground, you go home. And so that's how we have distinguished the 3 different types of parks that are out there. All right. The second major component of park planning is the development. This is the fun part. The other part is a lot of reading and reports and negotiations. And this is the fun part because now we're looking at a specific site, a specific park parcel. And we're looking at not only the design of that, which should go in there based on trends and needs citywide, but how does it impact the neighborhood? Where is it located? And what is the right mix of amenities that should go in there? And from there, you go into construction. So this next slide shows 8 steps into the park planning process. Of course, we always start with public workshops. We move into, we've been doing a lot of virtual workshops these days, and so that's been quite interesting and been quite a change for us. From there, the sketches that you saw on the other slides, we create a sketch based on the input. And from there, we then do a master plan refinement. Those are the colored renderings that you see when it comes to the commission. And we seek approval from the commission as well as the city council. From there, we go into what's called construction documents, where we do design development. We start to lay out what the details look like. And from there, the construction documents go into a citywide plan review. And the citywide plan review is most all departments who it could impact have a chance to look at the plans. So roads could be impacted by a park. Our water system is impacted by the park. So those departments have a chance to look at it and provide comments. Once it's approved, we go out to bid, because by law we need to bid the project. And then hopefully if we get competitive bids, we will go into construction. There's a lot of rules that go along with construction, and our construction window is fairly limited. So in order for us to be the most cost effective. So we've been trying to hit early spring, bid in the winter if we can, hit early spring to break ground because it's sunny, and hopefully be mostly done by October, November before it starts raining. Now that doesn't mean that the park's open when we're done with construction, because we have an establishment period, and that is literally watching the grass grow. And it is really important, because if we don't, we have too early of a use, we'll have maintenance problems the entire time. So we're doing safety checks, permit sign-offs, and watching the grass grow. And finally, we get to party. The grand opening. We have, unfortunately with COVID, we have about 7 lined up in a row, but that's the fun part. That's where you all are invited to attend. The park, if it has a namesake, is there as well, and we get to celebrate honoring or dedicating a park to either a person, a family, or just geographically that we have another park in our system. All right, this is an example of a fully rendered master plan. For some of you, this is familiar. It is Gibson Park, and we were here approving that late last year, I think. All right, the next slide is a picture of one of our park dedications. There is Dr. Dugan on the left there, putting his thumbs up. Construction can take about a year or more, and it really depends on the weather. If we get a late start, we get late rains, it delays our construction window. And the park dedications, we really try, even if we took the fences down in January, we try to have a dedication in the spring when the weather's better and people can enjoy not only the park for the day, but also the weather, hopefully not too hot. Our teams work on many parks concurrently. So this past year, we completed 5 new parks and completed both Central and Harry Crabb Park. And this totaled over $21 million. And so we, COVID or not, we keep going. And this last slide here is about one other component of the development aspect of park planning, and that is major rehabilitation projects. So this one might look familiar to some of you, but this is the replastering of the RAC, the Roseville Aquatic Complex, the competition pool, and the redeck. So those things are, multi-million dollars. And so we, as our park elements age, we have to keep them up safe, clean, and green. And so reinvestment is absolutely necessary as we move forward. So some examples that are coming up are the artificial field at Mahaney. We're going to have to start looking for what we do and when we do it from a timing standpoint. We're working on the replacement of the slide over here at the rack, as well as replacement of the play pool. What is that going to look like? It's $1.6 million to replace the slide and do something different for the play pool area. So we're looking at that. And another one is the former Children's Art Center at Royer. What is that going to look like? How do we reuse it? How do we refurbish it so that it is a benefit to our community? Playground replacements are also part of it. You heard here somebody wanting theirs redone. And we look at the age, we look at the use, we look at, what the community is looking for. And based on some of the past experiences, now we do a public input component as well. So we do a 2-week write-in period that allows people to look at what we're proposing for the playground and then give us their comments. So real quickly, and this is going to coincide with your report that Jill will talk about in a minute, but we've got about 3 or 4 potential parks that will be under construction this year. The next slide just outlines the parks we're designing, which is quite a few. And so what that really means is that next summer, a year from now, we're going to be quite busy with construction. And then the last one is a list of some of the major rehabs, some of which I described to you. Also, we're looking at refurbishing or replacing the Royer School-Age Playground to a destination-level playground. And we received some per capita grant monies to be able to do that. And we're matching it ourselves with some additional funds, as well as Stevenson Park, Dell Stevenson Park play structure replacement. This is actually one of our first park or playgrounds that is in a CFD. So the general fund is not paying for it. It's the CFD is paying for the replacement of that. And last but not least, here's the lineup of park dedications. And we're getting more guidelines, hopefully some clarification on gatherings, and we're hoping that we can sometime this year be able to celebrate each and every one of these parks that were open during COVID. So with that, this concludes my presentation. I stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
I just have a quick question. I know you're probably waiting on the county to progress through certain colors, I guess what they're called. But do you have an idea of when these park opening ceremonies will start?
We don't yet. We're hoping that late spring or early summer. The previous to, when was it, Friday? I think it was Friday. They didn't even have definitions for gatherings at all. And so we're starting to see some general definitions on gatherings, especially delineating between indoor and outdoor. So orange is probably the way it's defined now. The orange tier gives us a little bit more flexibility than any of the other tiers earlier than that. But we're still looking at some more clarification with regards to gatherings.
Yeah. Tara, on the school park sites, are we still doing joint use agreements with the school district?
We are. The challenge has been the challenge has been with schools and the current events or the current 10-year events. Security has been a big deal. So as earlier on, we were able to plan these school sites as a campus site. So the park is complementary to the school and what they have, so that we're not spending money twice, that we can offer a wider variety of recreation activities. Let's say the school provides a bank of basketball courts. Well, we're right next door to it, so why build basketball courts on the park where we could build something else that gives a variety of recreation activities? With the fencing, it makes it a little bit more difficult, security fencing, but we still do have a joint use agreement, and where we can and makes sense, we are still jointly providing those recreation activities on weekends, evenings, and vacations and holidays.
Yeah, that's one thing I have noticed is that at least the school district's been working with us. I live over by Ike and have that big fence up there, but I've been noticing on weekends, at least they leave the gate open. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, there's been, we've had some challenges just to ensure security, and of course, that's safety first.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tara? All right. Thank you, Tara.
Right.
All right, I believe that is it on the presentations. Staff, did you have any updates for the commission?
Yes, thank you. Again, Jill Geller, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Library. I just wanted to call attention to a couple of items that were in your packet this month. You had 2 handouts, which will be included in your packet monthly to help keep you informed on our Parks, Recreation, and Libraries efforts. One is a project status report, and Tara just went through that whole process, and she will be putting this together each month to kind of let you know where we are on all of those projects and how we're moving forward. Some months it may not change very much. Other months it may be different. And Commissioner Salchik, I appreciate her finding that there was a typo on here for WB 50 School Park. It says completion in 2019, and that should say 23. So this will be your park project update report that you'll get every month. And the other is what we call an indicator report. And this will show you the number of participants and participations that we have in our programs, the number of library circulations and digital downloads, the number of volunteers whose services we engage, number of rentals we facilitate, golf rounds, the number of visitors at our facilities. This indicator report compares these numbers for the current year to date to the prior year to date, and this helps us keep an eye on trends, identifies if an area is underperforming, or even better, if it's overperforming. And so you'll notice, unfortunately, on this month's report that in nearly all cases, our numbers are significantly lower than they were last year. COVID has definitely affected our operations. Having said that, there are 2 areas that have outperformed from last year, even in the midst of a pandemic. And one of those is our library circulations and digital downloads. We've seen how much our residents value our libraries. And through our Sidewalk Services, they've utilized us more than ever. And the fact that they can digitally download a book from home. It's been very helpful throughout COVID. So this number is up nearly 20% from last year. And the other area that's seen increased participation this year is golf. As you know, the golf courses have been allowed to operate nearly all through the pandemic, and people have flocked to be able to golf and do things outside. We've seen a lot of activities at Diamond Oaks and at Wood Creek golf courses, and rounds are up nearly 30% from where they were at this time last year. Tara mentioned that we are keeping a very close eye on the state's guidance related to COVID. We have seen some loosening in recent weeks. We've been able to start offering some recreation programs, which is why you see numbers at all in our recreation programs for this year. We've just recently been able to start offering those. And we will continue to keep a close eye on this guidance and add more programs and activities as we're allowed to, including our park dedications. So if at any time you have questions about these two reports, don't hesitate to reach out. But we just wanted to share this information with you regularly. And that's all I have.
Jill? All right, commission members, any comments? We'll start with Roy.
No, I'm good.
Peter?
I'm
No?
good.
No,
Andre?
just thanks staff
from
for
me.
the work.
Anna? No?
Nothing for me either.
You all want to go see the basketball game? No, my only comment, yeah, I've been going to, my daughter has a park program at Central Park, and we're enjoying those the zip line there is really nice. I like that style of the zip line. It's nice for the kids. And then, yeah, both my daughters took advantage of the day camps last week and very much enjoyed them. So,
I'm definitely enjoying Harry Crab Park being open. Makes my walk home a lot shorter. Very nice, and it's pretty.
okay.
Actually, I do have one comment. I spent a lot of time over the Easter break with grandchildren, and they love our parks. We've been to Royer Park more times than I can count, the Pirate Ship Park, and a couple of other parks. And what struck me is I was looking around, those parks were full of people. Full of people. People are returning in large numbers to our parks, and that's nice to see. And good reports tonight. I think folks are doing a good job out there. And the parks looked good. That's nice to see.
My 5-year-old, though, asked me why they don't have any low basketball hoops at the parks.
And what did you say?
I'll have to look into that. It's something I can find out for you.
I definitely use some low basketball hoops.
Yeah, 'cause, she just recently did the basketball camp as well, and she was the only girl in the camp and had a blast. But all right. So I think that's it. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I moved to adjourn and go watch the basketball game.
There you go. Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
For the shirt. Now we need an event to go.